Morning, my name is Fermi Butrago Romero. I am going to talk about CaMLA English Placement Test, Cambridge, Michigan English Placement Test. This is my last word for English exams for the National Open and Distance University English as a Foreign Language BA. What is the purpose of this exam? The Michigan English Test is made for placement. It's designed to quickly and reliably place ESL students into appropriate ability levels. It provides an accurate assessment of the takers' general language proficiency, measuring skills like listening comprehension, grammatical knowledge, vocabulary range, reading comprehension. What kind of people can take this exam? The Michigan EPT is designed for, as I said before, a placement test for incoming English language learners. This decision may include placement into the appropriate class of an intensive English program, into a multi-level ESL program, and determining suitable work assignments in occupational settings where English language proficiency is required. I mean, this is the objective of knowing the scores that these people get when they apply for this placement test. What is the main goal of the exam? The CaMLA EPT measures overall receptive language proficiency. Scores of the Michigan EPT are linked to the proficiency levels of the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, with score ranges corresponding to the A1 to C1 levels. Moreover, the Michigan EPT and the CFR can be found in linking the Common European Framework of Reference and the CaMLA English Placement Test. I am going to share these links in order for you to know more information about it. What are the most significant characteristics of the exam? How to use the Michigan EPT? It is designed for use as a placement test, as I said before, for incoming English language learner. These decisions, as I said before, are important in order to let students know what is the real level in which they are, and it is important for them to know what are the skills they have to improve and what are the skills that they have in a very good level. Test questions and format. There are totally 80 questions on all Michigan EPT forms. You have to know that there are 9 forms, A, B, C, that are scored from 0 to 100 points. D, E, F, 80 points. G, H, I, 80 points. There are 25 listening items, 20 grammar items, 20 vocabulary items, and 15 reading comprehension items. All questions on this EPT are multiple choice. There is a text, and then there is a question, and you have to choose among 3 options for the listening section and 4 options for all the other sections. You are going to have some examples in order for you to notice this situation. Each test form takes around 60 minutes for the text itself to be completed. Predators need to allow additional time for administrative procedures, approximately 10 minutes to distribute and collect these materials and to read directions. All these directions are scripted and given in the administration manual. Test scoring. Purchasing institutions score the test. The text package contains reproducible answer sheets and scoring stencil. schools, university institutions are the ones who are going to score this test in order to let their students know what are their levels, their optional levels. Placing students. The Michigan EPT administration manual contains guidance on how to interpret scores. Michigan EPT scores can be used to place learners into at least 6 distinct levels, and the manual provides specific cut points as reference for first-time users of the Michigan EPT. Transitioning from other tests. In certain institutions, they are using the older Michigan test, so it is very important to know the equivalence between some new ones and the old ones. Proven results and effectiveness. The Michigan was extensively pre-tested with English language learners at many different levels of proficiency from many different language backgrounds and in many different contexts. This pre-testing phase, after which any poorly performing tests were discarded, can make users confident that the Michigan EPT will successfully discriminate between students at different levels of language proficiency. So it is important for us to know what are the requirements that we need to apply for this test. Using parallel test forms. I was talking before about 6 text forms. Nowadays, actually in 2008, they have 9 different test forms, A, B, C, that are scored from 0 to 100, D, E, F, 80 points, and G, H, I, 80 points. So it is very important to know what are the new situations that I take into account to evaluate. How are the Michigan EPT and the MTELP series different? The first one, Michigan EPT, is for beginners. It's for people who never apply for this test in order to know what is their proficiency level that they need and that they have. And the second one, the MTELP series, is designed for using after a period of instruction with learners that use the first one as the requirement to know the real level they have. What skills are evaluated through the exam? Especially 4 situations: listening comprehension of questions and conversations, including the audio recording, grammar in context, selection of vocabulary to fit the context of single sentences, and the last one is the reading comprehension of sentences and text. They go from the most important things, input, and then they evaluate the output. So it is important to take into account this situation. Samples of each type are presented below. For example, listening question. You use the audio, and then you have to choose 3 options. When you are talking about listening dialogue, you have a kind of a conversation in context, and then you are going to choose the best option among 3 options that they give you. When you're talking about grammar, you always use these close exercises. You are going to fill the blank according to the situation, using only one right answer from 4 options that you had. As you can see, I have the the correct answers with an apostrophe. Last part of the test is the sentence level reader. It is important because it's the most complex. If you can take it that way, you have a very simple test, and you are going to imply some things about that test. Four options, and you are going to choose only one, the most correct that you think it is. And the scores. The scores are related with the levels of the common European frameworks or framework of reference. For example, C1. In C1, you can follow most speech with relative ease, recognizing a wide range of idiomatic expressions and colloquialisms, and appreciating registered shapes. So context and culture are very important elements in this part of the test. You can understand in detail what a range of lengthy, complex written text likely to be encountered in social, professional, and academic life, and identify finer points of detail, including attitudes and opinions, both stated and implied. You are being assessed as a person, as a social agent, and as a professional and academic subject. Mm, the it goes from 61 to 80 points. B2. You can understand speech likely to be encountered in social, professional, or academic life, and identify speaker points of view and attitudes, as well as informational content. You can read with a large degree of independence and understand texts in which the writers adopt particular stances or points of view. It goes from 53 to 60 points. B1, you can understand the main points of clear speech and familiar matters, regularly encountered in work, school, or leisure. You can understand the main points of factual written text on familiar subjects with a satisfactory level of comprehension. It goes from 39 to 52 points. A2, when you can understand and extract the essential information from slow and clear speech dealing with predictable everyday matters, daily life, daily routines, daily situations. You can understand short, simple written text containing the highest frequency vocabulary. It goes from 31 to 38 points. Finally, 81, that is the most simple level. You can follow slow, simple, and carefully articulated speech and familiar and concrete matters. You can understand very short, simple written text, single phrase at a time. So it is the most elementary level that you can get when you apply for this exam. It goes from 0 to 30 points. This information is adapted from the Council of Europe from 2001, pages 66 to 70 and 75. What is the interpretation of EPT scores and determining the CAT scores? You have to take into account the different forms that I was talking before. Test taker data from forms D, E, and F, as well as form A, were run through proprietary software that converts scores and probabilities into ability estimates for candidates. Ability estimates for each of the new forms were lined up against the ability estimates from form A to produce equivalence tables showing how raw scores on form D, E, and F corresponds to scores on the previous ABC forms. The score correspondence table for all forms can be found in one appendix that I am going to share with you. These concordance numbers are provided to help users familiar with the previous EPT to adapt their existing cut points to the new EPT forms. Organizations, institutions, schools, university will require different cut scores based on the proficiency of students and number of levels those students need to be streamed into. It is very important that the ones that are going to assess this kind of situations are institutions that I was talking before. One strategy an organization might use for determining appropriate CAT scores on the EPT is to administer the test to students whose ability levels in that context are already known. For example, students who have just enrolled in a lower intermediate level English language learning classes at a university, for example, or a kind of a level in an institution or certain grade in the school. And it is important to make a coherent and cohesive relation between the common framework and this exam that is inspired in those requirements. If the majority of test takers obtain scores in the range of 35 uh, to 42, for example, a decision could be made to use that EPT score range in the future to assign students to the lower intermediate course. It is an example of the relation between the common framework and this kind of test. These are the two references I would like you to know and to consult in order to organize the most important information. Thank you very much.